A little bit about me. I am just outside Leominster with my parents. Our family have been farming there since the 1930s. The majority of it, 450 acres, is owned by Brasenose College, one of the Oxford University colleges. But yeah, like I said, my great-grandfather moved there many years ago. But we also own a little block of land up at Hatfield. So that lovely little bit in between Tenbury and Bromyard that isn't really on the way anywhere. So if I'm honest, before we managed to buy it a couple of years ago, I didn't even really know it existed. But yeah, the bit of land that we farm just outside Leominster is that really wet bit. So if you could hang on to the water up here a little bit longer, please, before it comes rushing down to us. We go right up to the bypass and the railway line on the very southern edge of Leominster, and pretty much wrap right away around the south of it, sort of out towards the Ivington Road. But we're a pretty old-fashioned mixed farm, so beef, cereals, some vegetables, started doing some cut flowers as well, but also the agri-environment schemes like the mid-tier stewardship. And yeah, we've been organic now for over 20 years. It's something that was a decision my dad made, but it's something that I've tried to push on sort of further past just the idea of growing organically and thinking more in terms of the ecosystem and everything working together. But on top of the day job, I use social media quite a lot to try and sort of inform, educate the wider public about farming and how we do it specifically. But also I chat regularly to other farmers about what we're doing, and we exchange ideas. So yeah, so just a few pictures from the farm: some lettuce, sunflowers, some beef, and some of the arable up the top. Now the two farm sites are very different. So this here on the left is the farm down in just outside Leominster. As you can see, it is lovely, flat, perfect arable ground. This is the Dales factory. You know, that great big monstrosity. That actually used to be one of our fields as well. Our landlord sold it off to build a shed on. And yeah, we've got the River Arrow that runs through here. But yeah, they're very different sites, so it means that we don't try to cram in crops enterprises on the site up at Hatfield, we do down in Leominster, and vice versa. We've got some fantastic the arable ground at Leominster is so fertile because it's on that river, in that river valley, that it just grows fantastic crops, and just means that we are able to be organic. So this is up at Hatfield, small dog for scale. Beautiful, fantastic, untouched little part of the county with these great big bushy hedges, fairly diverse grassland there. We haven't done the thing to that, but there's fantastic diversity in that, and as we all know, sort of the more diversity you have, the greater the biodiversity, the better it is for the soil, the better it is for the livestock, and also just helps us to try and be a bit more resilient to climate change, which I'll come on to in a bit. So, environmental challenges. This was so we all know that it's getting wetter. Although the annual rainfall is relatively stable, the winters are getting considerably wetter. I think up to April 24, we'd had the wettest 18-month period on record. And this is actually a photo from last October, when the river came up so fast that we didn't have a chance to get the cattle out of one of the fields in time. And this is actually taken with my drone. I used my drone to round the cattle up and get them back towards the gate, because there was no way of getting around them without a canoe. and then this was November 2023. So this here is actually, it's a pond that we've got. We put that in over 30 years ago now. And it's fantastic, and it attracts all sorts of wildlife. The wildfowl we have down there during the winter is phenomenal. But yeah, the bits all around the outside, that water's not supposed to be there. And then that was January 2024. You can see here, this is, let me orientate myself, so this is the old Leominster Hereford Road here. And then February 24, March 24, April 24, November 24, and I don't have a picture of the ones from 6 weeks ago, but they were pretty fun as well. That's actually a little bit of a video. So yeah, this is the River Arrow here, and then you've got the railway line just along here in the bypass. But just for an idea, of the 450 acres that we farm, a third of that floods to that extent, and there's a little cottage we've got at the bottom of the yard, and that in pretty much my entire life hadn't flooded before, and then it flooded in the summer of 2007. I think everyone remembers that it was pretty freak rainfall, and then it flooded in 2019, then in 2020, and then it flooded 20 January this year, and then flooded 6 weeks ago, and then flooded a couple of days ago as well. So I think you don't have to be a statistician to imagine what that looks like, flooding incidents over time. These incidents are becoming more and more frequent. We're getting this really intense rainfall, and there's not much we can do to stop it. We just need to find ways to be as resilient as possible, and how we manage it, and how we really try to aim to keep the water off the out of the river for as long as possible before it gets further downstream and causes flooding. And so then, in stark contrast, that was August 22, where we went from a fairly wet spell, really wet spell, to this completely drying off. This little patch up here, you can see, that is a lapwing nesting plot that we do as part of the mid-tier stewardship scheme, and then a little scrape here, again for wading birds. It's the RPA, DEFRA, have told us we're not allowed to have that there anymore because it's at risk of erosion, but this is the only field that we have lapwing on. So if we're not going to put the lapwing nesting plot there, then I'm not really sure where we're going to put it. So yeah, like I said, we need to make our farm as resilient as possible to all these changes that we've got. We're organic, so we can't use pesticides. We're not synthetic pesticides or synthetic fertilizers. We grow all our own feed for our cattle, so that means that we're resilient to the market forces that shoot prices up when the butterfly effect. When something happens in Ukraine, we are isolated from that because we're not relying on buying food on animal feed on the global market, and also there's the environmental benefit of not having to import food as well. And then of course the diversity in our grassland, and then the biodiversity as well, and how that all works together, allowing for natural predators to keep on top of all our pests. So yeah, we've got a little ladybird on the Cavolo Nero. Honestly, those little fellas are we'd be lost without them. We honestly, I think some people think that, oh yeah, they do feed on pests, but they're not really, and there's never really enough of them to make any sort of difference. But I can tell you that we haven't even used any natural pesticides on our lettuce for over 20 years now. They really are that good. They will, we'll slide one in a bit. But yeah, this is, can't use herbicides, so this is just my tractor, a little retrofit, there we go, steering a lovely straight line, and just someone on the back, some pretty old school technology, steerage hoe, just going along, getting the weeds out from between the rows of vegetables, so we're not using any herbicides on there. And then again, there you go, little actual ladybird eating an actual little aphid. David Attenborough, eat your heart out. There you go, screaming for his life, poor little thing, never mind. And then slightly larger predators, we've got thrushes and other birds that will peck a lot of insects, whether it's cabbage flea beetle or mizzle thrushes, getting the slugs. And I don't know about anybody else, but there are not enough thrushes in the world to keep on top of the slugs that we have had this year. It has been apocalyptic levels of slugs. They've been horrendous. And then we started growing these, growing sunflowers in our wild bird seed mix. We've got some more photos of that later, and that's something we do as part of the mid-tier stewardship scheme to encourage birds and give them sort of food source over the winter. So it's a mix of different plant species with different sized seeds to give a bit of food source for the birds. But the sunflowers grew so well that I thought, well, I'll have a crack at growing them for cut flowers. So our main customer, Abel and Cole, box scheme that worked nationally, asked us to grow some for them. So we did, and we're doing about, in the peak of the season, we're doing about 2,000 stems a week for them, which has been fantastic. It's just something else to grow, but also it's quite worrying that I didn't realise 90% of cut flowers in the UK are imported, especially when you see like roses for Valentine's Day. You can't grow a rose in February in this country, and it's quite worrying the levels of pesticides that actually get used in a lot of the countries that they import them from. So bizarrely, chemicals that can be made here but not used here. So they're made here, sent over elsewhere, places like Kenya, used there, and then shipped back over here. But nobody's doing any pesticide residue testing on cut flowers. So who knows what you're handling. And then hedges, I think this is prime now for laying. So I might try and pinch Richard from CPRE to come and do some hedge laying courses on my farm once he's finished doing everything over at Tony's. I actually went on one of the hedge laying courses a couple of weeks back, and it's fantastic. So if anybody hasn't done it, I strongly recommend it. So in my little bit of downtime, what I like to do when I'm not farming is going around the farm with my camera, taking pictures of birds. I think it's really important as a farmer that I know what we've got on our farm. I think if you don't know what you've got, you're not going to miss it when it's gone. And I think a lot of us farmers don't take the time to actually see what we've got. And as much as we need to do so much more to encourage more birds, I think if you actually go out and look, there's a lot more out there than we think. And there's really actually very poor recording of bird species on farms in the UK. I was chatting to Toby from the Wildlife Trust, Toby Fountain, he's done some surveying on our farm, he's very into farmland birds, and he said he just would love more access to farms to be able to go and actually see what's out there, because you know, the vast swathes of Herefordshire that don't have access, and so we don't know what's there. So might actually be good to we might actually have a lot more species than we think. Green finches, fantastic to see them making a great comeback. Some brambling, lovely little finches. Skylark, hundreds, thousands of those living around the lettuce. I don't think it's the skylark that's eaten the lettuce there. I think that's some pigeons. But yeah, it's very, very happy to perch on. Now this was the most exciting find I've had on the farm. I had a little corn bunting, and so I heard it. I'm not very good with birdsong, and so I was just going around one of the fields one day, and I just heard this sound and just thought, I don't know what it is, but I know I've not heard it before. And so I got my phone out, and I don't know if anybody's got the Merlin app. Like, sometimes it gets it wrong, sometimes it gets it very wrong, but I got it out, and I set it to go. I heard that little jangly sound, and it said corn bunting, and I was like, no, I don't think it's corn bunting. So I closed that app, started it up again. It said corn bunting, and I was like, okay. So went onto YouTube, listened to a YouTube clip. I was like, does sound like it, but it could be something else. So I sent a video of it to Toby at the Wildlife Trust, and he said, yeah, that sounds like one. And so he came with another birder friend of his, and we went down to the field, and we could hear it. We hung around a little bit longer and actually saw it chasing a yellow wagtail, and it was being incredibly territorial. It's actually in the field where the lapwing nesting plots were, and we've got docks up to here, and it looks, you know, to a lot of farmers, they say it looks really rough, really untidy. It's right on the bypass. Of course it would be where everyone can see it and everyone can train, but nature isn't tidy, and those docks were actually providing a fantastic habitat for that to look to nest in, and they're very late nesting birds as well. So they, I think they can have some young on the ground in late August, early September, which, you know, when you think that from the beginning of September, you know, it's pretty much fair game for trimming hedges or whatever. But yeah, they are ground nesting birds, so just try now to hold off from doing anything on the field that could disturb them. But haven't heard it there for a bit, hoping it comes back and hoping that they are breeding in the area. And then up at Hatfield, like I said, it's such a wild, wonderful place, and I really do think that there's a very strong link between how much wildlife you've got on a farm and human activity, and because there's so little human activity up there, we just get so much more than down at Leominster. I mean, the farm at Leominster, we've got footpaths running all around the farm. And not only that, there's all the fields that people decide they're going to walk in anyway, and there's dogs running all over the place. So ground nesting birds don't really stand a chance. But up here, they're just, yeah, it's just wonderful and wild. Just like I said, it says up there, just had it up for 3 weeks. There's badgers, foxes, muntjac, owls. I think it was a wild ferret. I don't think it was a polecat or a stoat. Just by the look of it, yeah. And then that's an owl there that had obviously got something. But this, of all the actions that we do on the farm for wildlife, this is a great example of how you can have the food production and the wildlife in tandem, because this is kale, which is probably one of our major crops, but all these long stems are fat hen, and fat hen is the wrong level, is the bane of my life. It is so successful. You can eat fat hen, you can eat the leaves, and it's essentially wild quinoa, and you can eat the seeds. If anybody has got a marketing plan for it, come and have a chat with me afterwards. But it's, yeah, at times it can be an absolute nightmare. Get it to the right level though, it doesn't have an impact on yield. And these birds absolutely love it. And those are mostly linnets up there. Again, linnets, a bird on the RSPB red list, as you know, cause for concern, declining numbers. So it's fantastic to see numbers like that on the farm. So what we want to do on the farm is not just have like one habitat. You know, all these different birds, invertebrates, mammals, they all prefer different habitats. So we're trying to get a good mix, so we get the absolute maximum number of species we can. Lovely bit of ancient woodland. It's not a huge patch, but it's, you know, in the right time of year, it's just absolutely just full of colour, full of life. Spotted flycatchers sort of in there, just in the graded areas, bluebells, and it's. I think the thing to remember about the woodland as well is that it's not a static habitat. Trees grow, they evolve, they die, it needs to be managed, and one of the ways we manage it is by allowing the cattle to graze in there. They keep some of the brambles down, but then the brambles do perform a good function of protecting some saplings when they're growing up. It's actually a lapsed older coppice, well half of it is, and so we're trying to bring that back around into rotation now, just to keep it alive and stop it from the canopy from completely shading out the floor and stopping all these fantastic bluebells from thriving. And then that bit of ancient woodland, I call it parkland, it sounds a bit grand, doesn't it? It's not Barrington Hall, but we've got these phenomenal infield trees just dotted around, so you know, you've got the ancient woodland and it just bleeds out to these individual trees in this large grassland field. And this is one of the great ones. We've got some fantastic majestic ash up there that's still looking really healthy. And this really gnarly old goat willow that's yeah, just one of the chunkiest I think I've seen. But so yeah, the cows in trees. Agroforestry is a buzzword now, but it's something that people have been doing for centuries. You know, trees provide so much for cattle. Provide shelter from heat. And from cold and rain, and food. Willow is a great painkiller. You know, it's where aspirin comes from, and cattle will go and they will browse it if they need it. Cattle aren't designed to just eat one type of grass. They need this varied diet. We all do. You know, we've got all those bacteria in our guts. They all feed off something slightly different. So the more diverse the cattle's diet is, the healthier and happier they'll be. Some birds like trees, some birds hate trees. These are a red pole and a siskin in the older on the riverbank. The riverbank is just lined with alders all the way down it, and these birds use it as a vital corridor to get through without getting pecked off by one of the sparrowhawks or on the farm. And then down on the wetland bits, so yeah, lapwing nesting plot with lapwings hatching which is lovely to see. Again, another RSPB red list bird. And egrets, we've seen, I don't know if you have a lot of them up around here, but we've really started to see a lot more of them over the last few years, especially the large egrets. We've always had the little egrets, but the great egrets, yeah, quite a few of those are starting to come through now. But yeah, lapwings. Lapwings are one of my favourite birds. I think the noise they make, their wings, the way they fly, the way they can mob predators. But the problem is we've had numbers decrease so much recently. The field that they're on was always called the Peewit field when I was a kid growing up, and we'd go there and we'd see nests of them just dotted all around the field. You couldn't walk anywhere without treading on them. And the problem now is that yeah, they've been hit pretty hard by predators. So they are predated by foxes, by badgers, by corvids. And I think the corvids are probably the big one that has really affected them. Just over the river from us, a load of poplars were planted when I was fairly young, and now we have tens of thousands of jackdaws nesting in there overnight. You see them going into roost. Went to a really interesting talk last week about reintroduction of large predators, of apex predators, and the chap who's giving the talk said that by taking out a lot of apex predators who were doing a lot of pest control of these meso predators, we've knocked the balance out of nature out of it, and so you get that proliferation of likes of foxes and crows when you get rid of some of the bigger predators. So yeah, I mean, Canada geese. I mean, like we've got the half the Canada geese in the country down on our fields during the peak of the winter. But it's not all birds. We get some mammals as well. Hare seem pretty unbothered by me being up there taking a photo. But yeah, they're fantastic to see. And while we've got quite a few up at Hatfield, we've just started to see them come back to our land just outside Leominster as well, which is lovely to see. I don't know why I love seeing them so much more than rabbits. I mean, they seem to enjoy eating the lettuce just as much as the rabbit does, and they're twice the size, so eat considerably more as well. We're not just trying to manage what we've got, we're trying to restore some habitats as well. So we a couple of years ago did 8 hectares on 2 different sites of meadow restoration with the Herefordshire Meadows group. I'm sure you all know Caroline, Hanks and Rory. Fantastic people who really helped me to get it right, because it seemed like a very scary, daunting thing to do when you're given £5,000 worth of wildflower seed and told to not mess it up. So, it went in, and I think I spent. We put it in the October, and then I think I was down there every day on my hands and knees, trying to just look for anything, any sign of life. And it's in the field that runs parallel to the railway line and the A49. So there'd be a lot of people just wondering why there's someone crawling around on their hands and knees in the middle of a field. But it was worth it in the end. So this is up at Hatfield. This was after the first year. This Toby, who came and did the first year survey, pretty much all that yellow is yellow rattle, called the Meadow Maker for a reason, and really did help us with making the meadows. So second year, Caroline came up with, she had an intern with her, and we did the second year survey, and it looks a lot different. You can see down here a lot more oxide daisy. We actually had enough key indicator species in the second year to have it mapped onto the priority habitat inventory. So not only is that a great win for diversity, it also means that we can apply in the Sustainable Farming Incentive for GRH6, which is a catchy little name, but it means species-rich grassland, and it's an incentive for people to manage species-rich grassland rather than just go to a monoculture of ryegrass. And so, yeah, great for biodiversity, great for cattle health, and also good for me in making farming in this way financially sustainable as well as being environmentally friendly. Cover crops, Celia, absolute bee magnet. It's great to put in just to provide a bit of sort of cover, bind the soil together in those wet periods rather than just leaving things wet, soil bare over winter. One of the problems this year, and I'm sure everyone's seen it, is because we had such a wet, long winter last year, all the crops were late going in, particularly potatoes and maize. And so at the end of the year, when those potatoes came to be harvested and the maize came to be harvested, it was wet again. And so it just means that there were farmers desperately trying to drag potatoes out of the field. And it did do a lot of damage. And I hate seeing it, I'm sure everyone hates seeing it. It's just this necessity to think we need to get these potatoes out of this field. Otherwise, yeah, we're gonna lose them. So what we try and do is, as soon as we do get, we grow about 60 acres of potatoes. As soon as they're out, we try and get something straight back in there. And it's now a legal obligation to do that. The farming rules for water, but it is, as much as there maybe are people who don't give a damn about it, there are a lot of people who are really trying to do the best they can, but sometimes you just can't get on the ground, and it's really tough. So, Y-scapes. Has everyone heard of Y-scapes? Yeah, it's, for anyone who hasn't, it is part of it's a landscape recovery scheme that we've become involved with. So landscape recovery schemes, if you think of the different tiers of these environmental schemes, you've got the sustainable farming incentive, and then you've got the countryside stewardship schemes. The mid-tier schemes kind of been absorbed into the SFI, and then the higher tier is still, well, they haven't quite released the new scheme for that yet. But then landscape recovery sits at the top, and it has to be a minimum of 500 hectares. Now, there aren't a lot of farms that are 500 hectares in Herefordshire, but if farms collaborate, you can get up to that size. And it's fantastic that so Kate Speak-Adams, she was at the Wine Loss Foundation, she now heads up the Herefordshire Hub, Rural Hub. She has been driving this forward with help from the Wildlife Trust as well. They've been really instrumental in it, and managed to get 40 farmers to sign up to it along the Y catchment. And we are, because we're on the arrow, the lugs, the Y, we qualified for it, and it is going to be, it's so great to see thinking on such a wide scale. A lot of these schemes just take farms in isolation, and there's no real wider thinking about the wider context of that farm in the landscape. But this really does have the opportunity to think on a catchment level. It's a shame that it doesn't go across the border into Powys, because the agricultural policy is devolved to the home nations. So Wales is doing its own thing, and it's such a shame that yeah, there isn't that that cross-border collaboration, because the idea of Yscapes is to improve water quality, to improve biodiversity and habitat, and but also to maintain growing food, because a lot of the land that comes within Yscapes, and it's all parcels of land that are joined together by the rivers, it is incredibly fertile, and we do need to grow food. We just need to do it in a way that doesn't damage the environment, and so if we can pull this off, then it'll be fantastic. But this is our baselining day. You've got Caroline down here, it's Max from Yscapes, and Esther's there as well from Wildlife Trust, and Arena and Emma from the Floodplain Meadows Partnership. Fantastic to have them here, because there's not much they don't know about floodplain meadows, and this is a meadow on a floodplain. And this plant here, pepper saxifrage, I think that is, and I didn't know what that was until they told me. But it's great to see we have got some species there. There's something to work from. So just through correct management, hopefully we'll be able to bring that up without too much intervention. So yeah, the next projects going forward from this, so exciting to be part of the Yscapes scheme. But I've also just been awarded a place on the 2025 Nuffield Farming Scholarship Programme, which, if anybody doesn't know, it's a Nuffield Scholarship is basically a travel bursary to go and study a topic of your choice. You get to go around the world seeing how other countries have managed a certain issue, and you bring it back in the hope that it advances agriculture in this country. So I'm going to be looking at flooding and agriculture's roles in the causes of and solutions to flooding and diffuse pollution, which I think is pretty topical. And I was pretty surprised that no one's actually done a report on that before. One bit of concern for us though, in terms of the future on the farm, I'm not sure if anybody's heard about the housing development in Leominster, just on the southern edge of Leominster. 1,600 homes have been proposed, and that is our farm that our landlords are looking to sell, which is pretty much all of our land that is suitable for growing crops on. So the cereals and the vegetables that we grow will pretty much be left with the wet bits. So whether we are able to have a viable business from that, I'm not sure. But yeah, we'll wait to see what the planning committee decides from that. So that is final slide. Lovely. I didn't put it in because I like the picture. But it's a little pond that we've got up at Hatfield. Fantastic view there. So that's all for the talk. But if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.